Sunday, 8th of February 26, and I'm just looking at a Scottish poll. It was More in Common that was done this week, and it has for Westminster voting intention, it's got SNP on 34%, Reform on 25%, Labour 14%, Lib Dems 11%, Tories 10%, Greens 5%. So I'm really impressed by Reform. I mean, the way I look at Scottish politics now, I used to be SNP in that I don't really like any party because I would prefer to vote like in Switzerland on issues, quarterly referendums, stuff like that. I would like to vote on issues rather than parties and their party hampers, and also all the stuff they do, which they don't include in their manifesto, you know. But at the moment, I only vote on a single issue, immigration, and I vote Reform because of that. So it's really good to see Reform taking off in Scotland. I mean, John Swinney had his, I can't remember what they called the conference last year, but it was an anti-Reform conference, and it was to stop Scots voting Reform. And one of those ways is to say that you vote for Reform, it's the R word, you know. But it's not had any impact from what I can see. Personally, I think Reform are going to be the main party. Once the SNP voters, especially their marchers, realise SNP's attitude to this, because SNP are even more, they want Scotland to change faster than Labour. I mean, the Greens are maybe, they wanted to change even faster, but SNP aren't far behind. I mean, if there was an open border index, I mean, the Greens would be 100, Labour would be about 94, and SNP and Plaid Cymru, Sinn Féin would be about 98 or something. The Tories would be about 90. Lib Dems would be, they would be 94 or 95 as well, but then Advance UK would be about 51 maybe. Reform would be about 60. So, yeah, so that's really great. The More in Common. So, really, I mean, I voted for independence in 2014, but now I want Reform to save us, basically, on one issue, but as a protest vote. So, let's look at the More in Common. There's about 15 pollsters who do voting polls in the UK. Not that many in Scotland. We don't really get very many. I think this one had 1,017 Scottish adults. Usually there are about 1,000, these samples. So we've got SNP in 35%, and last September they were 37% in the More in Common poll. So they've come down, and the SNP at their peak in 2015, 2017, etc., they were around about 49% or something, you know. So they're struggling to go over the 40% barrier now. And we've got Reform. What's this? This is for Holyrood, actually. We're talking about, I think the same applies. So Reform on 19, Labour on 18, Tories 11, Lib Dems 10, Greens 5, others 2. So this is Holyrood voting intention constituency. And this is like first past the post for the Holyrood elections, which are in May. Because we've got 2 votes in these. So SNP at 35, they're down 2 from last September. Reform are 19%, they're up 3. Labour 18, they're up 1. I don't know why anyone's voting Labour now, especially in Scotland, you know. Apparently, in the independence question, independence is still very high. You know, it's like, as someone said, it's even higher than the actual independence referendum. I mean, that was like 45%, but now independence can be like 52%. I think the way SNP feel is that they really need to go over 60%. And I think Nicola Sturgeon even said that, really, to know that they have the Scottish people. But then it's up to the Westminster to decide or the Prime Minister to decide if they get a constituency. You know, we don't really live in a democracy, because David Cameron was was a City guy, and he was a gambler. He thought they were 100-to-1 shots. So Scottish independence, he thought he would burst the bubble, because at that time independence was 29% support or something when he signed the deal with Alex Hammond. But then it was very close, 45%, and he lost the next one, of course, Brexit. So he done all these gambles to sort of burst the bubble of, it basically he was using democracy, which we really get. Apparently Britain's only had 4 referendums since the war, World War II. So that shows you how undemocratic we are. One of them to join the European Economic Community, and the other, well, they were all under David Cameron. In Scotland we've had 2. We had one for devolution in 79, but you had to go over, I think it was 2/3 the vote, and they got about 58% or something wanted devolution. Then of course we had another one under Blair. But yeah, just looking at this again, I don't know why anyone's voting Labour, but apparently even for independence, out of the 8 regions, I think there's 8 regions they call it in Scotland, currently 7 of them are still voting no for independence, and the only one voting yes is Glasgow. I don't know if I got that right, but because Glasgow's such a big part of the population, you know, they're taking it over. So independence is still ahead, say 51% or something, I think. But anyway, on to this. Labour on 18%. So they're at 1. I can't understand why anyone still votes Labour at all, because even if you were left-leaning, Scotland's even more socialist than England in general, as a sort of football fan thing, you know. It's a sort of football fan thing. They're thinking of strikes and things like that. That's emotionally how they think of it. They're not actually thinking about the policies or whatever, but you can't get any more sort of centre-right than this Keir Starmer government, so why anyone's voting? I mean, personally, I've always thought the SNP are far more socialist than Labour, so I dumped Labour long ago. I've been SNP, Greens, but as I say, I only vote on one issue now, and for that it's reform currently. I would switch to Advance, but at the moment reform. But I would prefer if there was a one-issue party, and we should have a referendum on immigration as well, in my opinion. But it's a common sense thing to do. That takes all this weird voting patterns out the equation, because I think the left are just going to lose entirely now, you know, because of this one issue. So you've got Labour still there. The Tories, well, they're right down 11%. So I mean, Reform have already stolen the Tories mostly, but they're also taking Labour and SNP in my opinion. And we've got the Lib Dems at 10%. I don't know. I think the only reason Lib Dems do well in Scotland is that some areas want to say we're different from the city type and from central Scotland. We're different. We don't vote Labour, Tory or SNP here. We vote Lib Dems because we're different. You know, it's something like that. It's a weird thing. Having said that, I think Lib Dems are more socialist than Labour, so... But, you know, it's like football team supporting. It's not really to do with policies. And then you've got the Greens, and I think all these socialists, if Scotland is so socialist, they should all be supporting the Greens at the moment. And it's just not taking off by the looks of it, than 5%. Maybe it's because the Scottish Greens are not thing made with Zach Polanski, although they have agreed to become part of the UK thing again. They left it because there was a guy in 2022, I think it was a Muslim guy, who was more socially conservative for the Greens, and he was a deputy. And at that time the Greens of Scotland decided to leave because of a few social conservative policies he had, although they didn't actually say why, with to imply that's what it was, but they didn't say. But now under Zach Polanski they've decided to rejoin, you know, as a sort of not as a branch, as a sort of equal, you know. And then for others we've got 2%. Is that Alba? I would imagine it is. Last year that was 0, so that would mean they're doing a bit better in this. So this is for Holyrood. constituency. So SNP 35, Reform 19. So although it's a big gap, SNP's come down a bit, Reform's went up. Personally, I think Reform could be the biggest party in May. I think the shift is going to be so fast. Once SNP voters realise that SNP want to change Scotland faster than Labour do with this new experiment that's never been tried in humanity, you know. So, I mean, as Nicola Sturgeon said, she said something like, people don't realise how pro-immigration SNP are. And she says we should be making the positive thingy for immigration, especially for Scotland. And also, if you try to out-reform on this issue, then they'll just vote Reform, which isn't true actually, because in Denmark the Labour Party lost the 2015 election. They feel on immigration, and then the next leader had very, very strict immigration policies, and Labour get back in, and that's seen as bursting the bubble of the Danish sensible immigration party, who haven't done as well since. Personally, I think the Danes have made a mistake, and they'll probably go back again to that party, but it just goes to show you that Labour are pretty stricter on it now anyway, so, and they're picking up again, so I don't know. And apparently for the Holyrood constituency, this means Reform UK has overtaken Labour to become the second place party in Scotland for the first time in this series. I think for Scotland, Westminster voting is a better picture because I don't think a lot of Scots understand the Holyrood voting system. John Curtis even got one of the pollsters to change what they ask for the second vote, the regional vote, because I think a lot of people don't understand that you can vote for the same party twice in Scotland for your constituency vote and your regional vote. So Westminster, I think Scots understand it more, so this is more accurate, giving you a sort of a flash vote of what they're thinking. And for this, we've got SNP at 34%, Reform on 25%, so Reform are a way up from 19%, Labour 14%, so they're a way down, Lib Dems 11%, Tories 10%, Greens 5%. So, and from, I don't know, they're saying from mid-January here. I don't know if it's, yeah, maybe more in comment on this one, mid-January as well. But, so that means, nah, that doesn't make sense. No, because it's got SNP in 24 and then they're up to 34. Then Reform 27. Maybe it's the other way around. Maybe SNP was 27 and now they're 34. No, that doesn't make sense. So AI's got a bit to go. Well, the Gemini fast one. But I think the late January one's right. Reform 25, Labour 14. So I think that's more accurate for Labour. Lib Dems 11, Tories 10, Greens 5. So Greens not having any traction really in Scotland in these first past the post voting things. But there you go, Reform well ahead in second place. So I think this is truly accurate personally. SNP in 34. Like I say, if it wasn't for immigration, I would maybe I probably would vote for SNP or Greens. Not that I agree with them across the board with everything. Like I say, I don't believe in parties and party hampers, but that's probably where I'd be in general. But I'm voting on one issue really, and I would rather have a one issue party. But so in a seat projection for Westminster on this would be SNP on 40 seats, and that's way down from, what was it, 2015 when they get 56 seats. I think Scotland's also losing 3 seats as well for Westminster, but yeah, it's a long way from their best. There's some other stats. Holyrood constituency, well, wait a minute. The independent support, this must be the moreincommon still. No, it's Norstat. 48% for yes, no 46%. So yes is still ahead. It shows you how confused Scots are. I think immigration is a sort of the sort of thing they want to vote on, but they don't know how to vote really. They've been told to vote reform is bad, you're a bad person. Personally, I think if you love Scotland, you should be voting reform now as soon as possible, especially if you vote SNP. I've done the switch, so and for Scotland, Holyrood, we get 2 votes, and the second one is for the proportional representation. It's a regional list where we've got 8 regions, I think, and you get to vote for 3 candidates, I think it is, which personally I prefer, because if you wanted to see an MSP, I think you would rather see the one from the party that you wanted. So, and you've got more chance of that if there's 3 for a region. So rather than your first past the post, where it's almost always going to be a left leaning. So if you're worried about immigration, you're not going to go to a first past the post thing in Scotland, I think, so because they're going to call you the R word or something, probably. So this is for the list voting. And by the way, I'm not really interested in Scottish politics. I am privately, but not publicly. I'm not interested, but I feel we're in such a desperate situation. I just want to get a word out to the SNP and Labour traditional voters, vote reform on one issue, a protest vote, don't worry. So, Holyrood regional list voting, we've got SNP on 30%, Reform on 19%, Labour 16%, Tories 11%, Greens 10%. This is more in common. Polster. Lib Dems 8, Alba 4. Oh, that's quite high. Others 2. I don't know who the others are. Can't imagine, really. So, SNP are on 30. From last September, they're down to. So, in this one, John Curtis says that Scots don't understand this one. So, they should. He's got YouGov, I think, to change what they ask on this. So on this one, SNP are usually down, Reform are usually down quite a bit, and Greens are usually up, because people see this as a second vote. But a lot of Scots think you can't vote for the same party twice. So that's what John Curtis was pointing out. I don't know if More in Common are using the change that he's suggested as well. So we've got SNP in 30, down to Reform in 19. So for a regional thing, I would have expected Reform to be a lot higher. So Reform are 25 in the Constituency. Oh no, in the Westminster. Wait, I'll check this. Holyrood. Actually, Reform are the same in Holyrood Constituency on 19%, and on the regional Holyrood 19%. So maybe they're voting on 1 and 2, voting them twice. So, I don't know. Actually, I'm thinking for your second vote, you only get to vote for one person, I think. Is that right? And then in council elections, we get to vote transferable vote. We get to vote them in order of who we prefer out of the whole lot. So you can, if there's 7 candidates, you can vote 7 people in order. So I can't remember the second vote type in Holyrood. I know in Wales, I think they're going to just have proportional representation this year. It's not going to be constituency at all. I think it's just going to be total PR. So if you vote for a party, your vote counts for them. That's the first time they're going to do that in Wales. So anyway, we've still got Reform in 19, so that's pretty good. They're up 3. Labour in 16. I don't know who's voting Labour now. I mean, if you vote left, I would vote Greens probably, and SNP. Either of those 2, really. Then Lib Dems. I mean, out of leftists, I would put them, as I say, maybe Greens first, SNP second, Lib Dems third, Labour fourth. So, Reform 19, Labour 16, Tories 11. I don't know, it must be old people still voting them or something. Greens 10, so they're doing a lot better in the regional. I mean, I think they're 5% in the first past the post. And I heard that they're not going to stand in many first past the post, just a few where they think they can win, like Edinburgh Central, which I think is the seat of, I can't remember, I know his face but I can't remember his name. Lib Dems are an 8, they're down to from September 25. Alba 4% up 1, so they're doing better than I expected there. Others 2%, so that would be up from 0. So from the regional list, the pro-independent support, which would be SNP, Green and Alba, the regional share is 44% in this More in Common poll from February 26. And that's down 1% from September 25. And the total pro-union share is 54%, up 1 from 25. And that's Labour, the Tories, Lib Dems and Reform. And Alba holds steady at 4%, potentially impacting the number of list seats for larger parties in specific regions. And here's an estimate of the Holyrood seats, and we have a Scottish election in May this year. So 129 seats are up for grabs. I think you need 65 for a majority. So here's some projections. And this is having SNP at around about 35%, Reform 20%, Labour 18%. SNP would be on 60 seats, down 4. Reform 23 seats, they'd be plus 23. Labour 15 seats, down 7. Tories 13, down 18. Greens 10, up 2. Lib Dems 8, up 4. And Alba 0. So even though Alba have 4% in the regional, I still think they would be 0. So that would probably be an SNP and Greens. That would be 70. But well done Reform, So in a way, I like it this way because it means SNP and Greens are probably my favourite parties. Although, like I say, I don't believe in parties. I want to vote per issue. If you removed that issue, which they're the worst on, actually. So, and to have them counterbalanced by Reform would be ideal for me, because normally I wouldn't vote for Reform at all. But one issue, protest vote, you've got to. So, and I just want Labour, Tories to disappear. Lib Dems now really as well. Alba, I don't know, they just seem a stone in the shoe of SNP. They sort of just pick things to niggle SNP with, but actually they are really just the same, apart from niggly things that they want to. So they're not really, I think it's just a vanity project really, or it was. So looking at these, that would mean SNP 60 seats. The SNP would be the largest party, but 5 seats short of an overall majority. A potential SNP Green informal or formal coalition would command 70 seats, maintaining a pro-independence majority in the chamber. Yeah, I like all these bulwark, is that the word? Sort of offsetting each other. Like I want the independence coalition to lead Scotland, but I want us to be part of Britain so that they can't get independence. They can't even get a referendum because we don't live in a democracy, and they can't get a thing. And funnily enough, your party Scotland had their conference today, and Jeremy Corbyn was pointing that out. It's not very democratic if they're not allowed a referendum when they want it. But then we should have referendums for everything, in my opinion. So you can even do it for Westminster. You could do it for each bill the government wanted passed. Have a constituency referendum, take it out of the MP's hands. And point 2, the Reform UK breakthrough. Because Reform UK is polling strongly, around 20%, but has no concentrated geographic base, almost all of their 23 seats would come from the regional list. The top-up seats. Reform would likely replace the Scottish Tories as the primary right-of-centre opposition block. Yeah, they certainly would. And as I say, I vote on one issue, and reform's the only one that can save us out of this lot that we've got to vote for. Advance are even better on it. Advance UK. Unions fragmentation. Labour, Tory, Lib Dems and Reform would hold a combined 59 seats. And Labour, from being the main challenger in 24-25, Labour is projected to fall to 15 seats, their lowest Holyrood total in history, due to votes leaking to both the SNP and, yes, Reform. Yes, vote Reform, Labour voters. Scottish Parliament uses the additional member system. SNP are likely to win the vast majority of the 73 constituency seats. And someone was saying actually that because we're so fragmented now, just in the way that Keir Starmer won the general election in 24, with only 34% of the vote, he won 66% of the seats because it's first past the post. And the Tory vote collapsed from 44% to 22%. Labour really stood still. Jeremy Corbyn got more votes in 2019 than Keir Starmer did in 2024, but the Tory vote collapsed. And because of that, Keir Starmer clean sweeped, and he calls it a overwhelming victory. He doesn't call it a loveless victory, a undemocratic victory, which it was. But I think the same could happen in the Scottish Parliament because it's so fragmented now, but the SNP are holding on the most out of the old parties, whereas Reform's not got enough yet to make the breakthrough in the first past the post seats. You could have the situation where SNP win almost all the constituency seats, and they might even get a majority out of that, even before you do the proportional representation thing with the second seats. They could maybe get 65 seats out of that because Tories' votes collapsed, Labour's votes collapsed. Reform hasn't gained enough yet, but personally I think they might before May. I think they might be up to 30% before May Reform, because I don't think Scots are any different from the Welsh who have went big on Reform, or England really. Everyone's worried about it, in my opinion. Everyone who remembers Scotland of old and that, and the way it's going, There's two ways Scotland could go, We're either heading for utopia, as we're told, or it could be complete chaos. That's the two wide spectrums. And what do you think is most likely? So that's the way I'm voting at the moment anyway. So because the SNP wins so many constituency, the 56 regional list seats are mathematically weighted towards the other parties. Yeah, because they try and balance that proportional representation wise, although it doesn't really work, I don't think that. But so even though SNP will do well in the regional list, it'll be against them because some of their voters have maybe voted for Greens in the second vote, etc. So this is where the others will get the top up, and so we'll see how it goes anyway. So here's again the Westminster voting intention, because I think Scots understand this better. SNP are on 34, Reform are on 25, so Reform are nearly catching up. Labour 14, Lib Dems 11, Greens 5. I'm not even mentioning Tories, but so it's looking at SNP versus Reform in Scotland. In Wales, it's Plaid Cymru versus Reform. So yeah, thank goodness. Reform are now in it. Don't be afraid to vote Reform if you're SNP Labour. If you're worried about one issue, it's a protest vote. It's a single issue vote. It'd be better if we had a referendum on it, or if there was a single issue party, because it's that it's that serious now, I think. But that's all we can do at the moment. All we can do is a protest vote for Reform. Okay, bye for now.